I'm Jennifer Matos with the Noah Webster House and West Hartford Historical Society, and I'm bringing you the 42nd episode of the Armchair tour of West Hartford history. I'm on North Main Street, standing in front of a house that was once lived in by the Shelton family. The Sheltons moved into the neighborhood in 1959, and I'm specifically going to be talking about the matriarch of the family, Olivia Shelton. Olivia Shelton lived in the house that I'm standing in front of for 35 years. She was a longtime teacher in the Hartford Public Schools and also an activist for social justice. When Olivia Shelton and her family moved into this house in 1959, they were one of very few black families to live in West Hartford. So even though we know that African Americans have been living in West Hartford since the 1700s, there are some practices that really caused segregation in town in the 1930s and 40s, so that the population was small enough that in the 1950s it was kind of this big deal that the Sheltons were moving into the neighborhood. In 1960, out of 62,000 people living in West Hartford, less than 0.5% of them were African American. Even though her family was a target of overt racism, Olivia Shelton remained undaunted. In 1997, Shelton, at the age of 87, gave an oral history to a woman named Dorothy Billington, and that was through the West Hartford African American Social and Cultural Organization. And today the oral history is stored in the collection of the Noah Webster House and West Hartford Historical Society. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Olivia Shelton based on what she said in her oral history. So Olivia Shelton was born Olivia Whaasco, and she was born in 1910 on a farm in Franklinton, North Carolina. Her father was a tenant farmer of a cotton farm, and Olivia recalled the cows and pigs that they raised and also how the family picked cotton. She wanted more for herself. She attended Shaw University in Raleigh, North Carolina, where she received a Bachelor's of Arts degree. Then she went on to Columbia University for her master's degree. From 1934 to 1942, she worked as a teacher in North Carolina. And during that time, she met a man named Lieutenant Colonel Clarence Bird Shelton, and they married in 1942. They lived in Seattle, Washington, where they had their first son, Clarence Jr., and then in 1945, the family moved to Hartford, Connecticut. When they came to Connecticut, the Sheltons rented a 3-family home on Oakland Terrace in Hartford, and they lived there from 1947 to 1959. Olivia wanted to continue on as a teacher, but she found difficulty landing a job in Hartford Public Schools. She had an Ivy League education, a principal's certificate, and plenty of experience. Still, the Board of Education would only hire Olivia as a substitute teacher for 3 years. And in her oral history, Shelton says, "I'm positive it was because I was black." The Sheltons had a second son, Brent, in 1949, and Olivia took 2 or 3 years off. When she went to go back to work for Hartford Public Schools, they wouldn't hire her. She eventually appealed to Reverend Moody, who was one of the first black members of Hartford's Board of Education, and he was able to get her a job with the system. And she went on to be a loyal teacher at Hartford, where she worked for 32 years. In 1959, Olivia Shelton and her family moved here to West Hartford, and they ended up buying the house behind me, which was a 5-bedroom, 3.5-bath Tudor house that had been built in 1928 on North Main Street, despite the discouragement from real estate agents. According to her oral history, real estate agents told the Sheltons that there were termites and water in the basement in certain houses to try to prevent them from purchasing them in white-dominated neighborhoods. When they settled on this house on North Main Street, the man next door offered them $5,000 not to move in. Soon after she moved in, Olivia found a note in her mailbox which read, quote, "Get out of here, you black bastards, while you can." In her oral history, she said she was grateful that it was her who found the note and not her sons. In a 1973 West Hartford News article, she spoke about the experience and how upsetting it was to her. She said after they moved in, they would sometimes attend real estate open houses in various neighborhoods. just for meanness and devilment to scare the people. In the article, she said, "I don't like to pretend to put forth that all is well. I'm sure that you'll run into that interviewing other black families." Olivia's oldest son, Clarence Jr., went to Conard High School, and in Olivia's words, it was terrible for him. The Sheltons' younger son, Brent, was the first black student to attend Bugby School right down the road. He fared a little better, but Olivia maintained it was only due to his friendship with G. Fox and Company's Beatrice Fox Auerbach's grandson. Auerbach's daughter, Georgette Cooperman, was the Cub Scouts' den mother. Olivia said, "Brent made out all right because at Bugby, this lady took him in. He was friendly with her son. The people treated him all right. They didn't dare treat him any other way because of Mrs. Auerbach. She owned G. Fox and Company. That made a difference." After their older son's experience at Conard High School, and the Sheltons ended up sending their second son to Watkinson, hoping to protect him somewhat, but it was tough for him as well. In the face of this discrimination and bias, the Shelton family persevered. They joined the First Church of Christ Congregational in West Hartford in 1961. They were the only black family in the church at the time. And Mrs. Shelton is remembered for always wearing a beautiful large hat to Sunday services. She taught third grade Sunday school for 12 years and eventually was appointed a deacon in the church. Olivia volunteered as a clerk in the gift shop one day a week at the Children's Museum. She helped found the West Hartford African American Social and Cultural Organization. In the summer of 1967, she trained to be a teacher for Project Concern, and she was a Hartford teacher who was sent to work at Smith and Wolcott for a year. Olivia Shelton had many accolades in her life. She served as president of the Hartford chapter of the National Council of Negro Women and was a charter member of the Connecticut Caucus of Black Women for Political Action. She was also the founder and first president of the Hartford alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc. She was a member of the NAACP, Jack and Jill, Inc., and the Boy Scouts of America. When Olivia Shelton gave her oral history at the age of 87, she said her 30-some years in West Hartford had been very good and wholesome. She didn't think the note she had received back in 1959 in her mailbox resembled what the community really was about. She said she felt safe living here on North Main Street. "Most of the people there are Jewish, and they were nice to us." Perhaps the time that had passed had healed some of the wounds she had received when she first moved to West Hartford. Or it might be that Olivia Shelton was an amazingly resilient woman, a pioneer, who, as interviewer Dorothy Billington said, integrated the area in a quiet, dignified way. Olivia Shelton passed away on June 27, 2001, at the age of 90, and it's my privilege to be able to remember her today. I hope you learned a little bit something new about Olivia Shelton and what West Hartford was like when she moved here in 1959. We'll see you next week.